Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are creating the ultimate beginner's guide to City Skylines by creating the city of Trattoria. And in this episode, we are going to present the 15 most important mods for advanced players. Now, if you haven't checked out the previous video where we looked at the 15 most important mods for beginners, I highly recommend you check that out. That said, this video is going to focus on mods that really enhance your gameplay and give you more power to customize your city. So that these are mods that let you completely harness everything in the game, completely change things, and give you features that the base game never did. So the previous video where it focused on visual enhancements and some basic quality of life things, this will really help you elevate your game to the next level. Now, in the previous episode, I did not talk about two mods that I'm just kind of expecting you to have in your library that are dependencies. So that's Harmony and the Unified UI. I'm including those in both mod lists because they're just kind of fundamental to the way that modding works now. So those are in the mods list, but they're not considered advanced mods. They're just something you have to have. And with that, let's hop right into the video after a brief word from our sponsor. I've teamed up with Apex Gaming PCs to design my own custom computer perfect for playing games like Cities Skylines and Timberborn. Check them out by looking at the link in the video description. First up is a mod that some people will consider the most essential mod in the game, TMPE Traffic Manager. This is such a great mod, and we're going to use some of the features here. You can see that this roundabout is really broken, and we've got some issues. There's a lot of traffic backing up, and that's where TMPE can come in. So clicking on this icon right here, you can see that we have a number of options available to us. We'll walk through each of them. I'm not going to go into a deep dive into certain ones of these, such as time traffic lights, for instance. I'll go over the basics, but there's a lot to it. The very first thing, though, is if you have a roundabout like this, you can click on it and you'll see that you get a whole bunch of new options. So you have the ability to clear traffic rules, add stop signs, and a bunch of other prioritization stuff. But one of the things that's great is you get the option right here to set it for a roundabout. So what that's going to do is allow people to travel through here and give prioritization to vehicles inside of the roundabout. So that is awesome. That will make your roundabout function a lot better. You could go even further though. Right here we have lane arrows, which allows you to click on a segment, and what you'll need to do is make sure that it's oriented properly so that the cars are kind of facing the same way as these lane markers up here. But what you'll be able to do is completely control what's happening here. So let's say you only wanted people on these two right-hand lanes to make right-hand turns. Click this, and now those two right-hand lanes are only allowing right-hand turns. You could change that as well and allow different movements through there. So it's very, very powerful. If you don't like this, you could use the lane connectors, which allows you to go through and actually manually connect these up and decide where people are going. Now, this can be really helpful if you want people to merge into specific lanes. You have a little bit more control. So you could say that this center lane, you're either going to take a right here or you're merging into here, because you want these two to have completely unimpeded movement. So very powerful. This can be very, very useful, especially in situations like this, where maybe you just want right here, you're only able to go into this lane. Stop trying to go into the center or go into the outside lane. You can create lots of problems with this though, because if there's not a node through here, you're going to be forcing these folks to turn right. So be aware of that. With Traffic Manager, if you're not careful, you can create new traffic problems. But now you'll see that everyone here is turning right. Now we have a problem here where everyone's trying to get down here. We can clear that up and keep everyone in their lane here as well. So what this will do is create a free flow movement here. There is no node here. You notice that I can't control anything in between. So what we are doing is forcing everyone to turn right and then completely loop back into the city. So that might not be what you're trying to do, something to be aware of. With that, you can come through here again, clear all those restrictions, set it back up as a roundabout, and that clears all of your junctions as well. Now, you could create manual stoplights with this as well. So you could come through here, click on manual traffic lights, click on this, and now what you'll see is that you have a counter. And what you can do is go through here and set up everything individually if that's what you really wanted to. I prefer, if you're going to do this, to do a time traffic light. So what you do is hold control and click it, and you'll get into the setup menu. So what this is doing is it'll automatically set it up and try to make it work as best as it can. You could link a couple of lights together. So let's say we wanted this one to link up with this one. We could certainly do that as well. So we would add a junction, and now these are linked together. So these phases will be completely connected. Now there are many creators out there who create excellent videos on how to do this. I would highly recommend you check those out. But in basic, I hit start. Now these are starting to operate. The phases are all wrong, and you're going to want to go through and really work on these to try to get them to be just right. So you can do that, and that's certainly something you can do. I'm going to remove this, so I stopped it, and now I can remove the time traffic light, stop this one, remove the time traffic light, and now we're back to normal. So that's something you could do. Something that a lot of people like to do is untoggle despawning. So in the base game, if a vehicle sits somewhere for too long, it will just despawn the vehicle. If you click this, vehicles will never despawn. And I'm going to show you what this does. So if we come over and take a look, so if you go up to your info views and we take a look at our traffic, I'm going to let this, I don't even need to let this go. I can see that the traffic has already dropped into the 70s, and that's because vehicles are now just getting stuck. So if you want an extra challenge with your traffic, this is certainly a way to do it. You're going to have to really respect roadway hierarchy, and you're going to have to look at every single intersection and make sure that it's flowing appropriately. Time traffic lights are going to be incredibly important with this. So I generally play with traffic despawning on. It's an imperfect management, and I prefer to be able to focus on the land uses and transit and not have to worry so much about traffic despawning. So that's a personal call. If you want an added challenge, that's the way to do it. And if the challenge is too much, you can always click on this button down here, which completely clears traffic. So you'll see everything clear out, no vehicles on the roads now. They'll start to come back eventually, but it's going to take a little while. 55%, there's no cars on the road. It's kind of funny. All right, so, and then the traffic will jump back up and things will start to improve over time. Next, we can take a look at our priority signs, and one of the nice things that Traffic Manager gives you are yield signs or giveaway signs. So when you click on an intersection with TMPE on, you click once, this is free flow, yield. So this particular movement would have to give way to this movement, which would be the priority, and then a stop sign like the normal game has. So it's just another nice option to have, and you can certainly prioritize this. And if you have despawning on, you're probably going to need to go through and take a look at where giveaway signs make the most sense. So next, we also have these junction restrictions. Now this is very powerful. So one spot where this might be interesting to you is at a junction like this. So we have the ability for pedestrians to cross just like this gentleman just did. We could say no crossing. So now that crossing is gone. Now the reason why this is gone is hide TMPE crosswalks mod is enabled in my particular mod set. I did include that with this mod. It's a visual enhancement. It doesn't actually do anything besides remove the crosswalk, but it's a nice visual cue to me, so I'm giving that to you as well. The other thing you can do is make it so that you can do U-turns. Right now, by default, you can't. I don't know why you'd want to allow that at a at something like this, but a roundabout. But you could certainly do that. Right here prevents people from switching lanes, and this prevents people from blocking a junction. So that might be valuable to you if you don't want people to pull out in front of a junction and block traffic. So that's something you're going to want to take a look at. Or if you want them to be able to proceed through the junction. So right here, that's what you're seeing is that people are going through the junction. Here, we actually wouldn't want that because we want the priority to be with the roundabout. Next, we have speed limits, and this is a really important thing to be able to set. You can start to see the speed limits right here. So right now, they are in kilometers per hour. You could switch it over to miles per hour if that's what you are more used to. And actually, I apologize, that was miles per hour. Now we're in kilometers per hour. So you can switch that so it's a little easier for you to understand. And you can also set the default for the roadway type. So if you wanted to switch all highway types to 25 miles per hour, you just go on this with this option here selected. And there you go. Now you can see that all of these junctions all of these segments are now 25 miles per hour. Obviously that's inappropriate. I'm going to set it to 65. And now all of those are set to 65. But for this roundabout, that is an inappropriate speed. So we're going to want to change that. And you'll notice it's just these 3-lane roads that we changed. The 2-lane, the 1-lane, those are unchanged. So if you wanted to get all of your highway segments, you're going to have to change all of them. That said, let's go back to just roadway segment speed limits. So that is every single lane on this roadway segment. We could say that for this particular roundabout, 35 is an appropriate speed. Now, I am changing that just for individual segments. If I hold the shift button down, I change it for all that are connected within here. So it changed it for the entire roundabout. And if I wanted to change it by lane, I would click this button. And now I could say, if you're on the outside lane, it's 25. So that can be helpful if you want to force trucks into a certain lane, for instance. You could have a passing lane and set that up here. And that's actually a good segue into some of the options that you see inside of Traffic Manager in the options menu. So you can set the default signs, so miles per hour US. For what I'm doing right now, you can lock the menu position, use the unified UI, which would get rid of this icon and shift it into the unified UI. You can change your simulation accuracy. Now, understand that if you improve this, you're going to drop FPS. It's just, it takes more computational power to have a better simulation. So I generally keep mine very low or low. Going into gameplay, you can change the way your drivers behave. So you can have some that speed and don't do things that are predictable. So I generally keep mine at minor complaints or Holy City. Minor complaints, you'll see a couple drivers speed here and there, so that's a good thing, along with individual driving styles. Not that it's good that they're speeding, but good that it creates a more realistic dynamic. You can have a roadway condition that impacts larger vehicle speeds more. Despawning also here. Advanced vehicle AI will get rid of some of the single lane issues that we're seeing right here. So I like to have that enabled. Parking AI, realistic parking. I love having this enabled too. You'll see that much more parking gets used. People parking on the sides of the roads and their important buildings. If you have parking lots, they'll start to fill up. So that's important too. You can get rid of unnecessary transfers. So if the game believes that it is easier to go from high capacity transit to a bus to get somewhere, it'll force that transfer, even if it's actually faster to use the high capacity transit with a walk. So this is a good one to have enabled as well. For policies, these are incredibly powerful. You can start to do things like have buses ignore lane arrows so they could proceed straight through a lane if that is helpful for them. Vehicles can block junctions, U-turns, rights. You can have vehicles allow rights on red lights, which is normal here in the US. I think it's abnormal in Europe and other parts of the world. So it might work for your particular build. You can also ban private vehicles in bus lanes, which I think is really, really useful. I wish it was like that in the base game. And you can, there's just so many options in here that you could take a look at. So I'd highly recommend you go through these and customize them for your particular build. There are some overlays and maintenance options as well. Reset stuck sims in vehicles, remove all of the traffic lights. You know, a lot of things that you can do to make your game a little bit more interesting, and then obviously change your keybinds. So this is such a deep mod. There's so many things you can do. I've really only scratched the surface. You can also ban vehicles for specific types of vehicles. So let's say on this road, we did not want freight traffic in the outside lane. We could certainly go through and ban that if that's something you're interested in, or ban it altogether. You can make a pedestrian road this way or a transit only street. You could also get rid of parking. So maybe I don't want parking on this particular road. I could click that, remove it on just this strip, or hold shift and get rid of it on this entire segment. So just a very powerful mod, so many things that you can do. And I would highly recommend that you check it out. You can see that a lot of these changes are made in real time. Let's see if we have a street with lots of parking. There's a lot right here. I'm going to hold shift, block it on this whole street. Now everyone's on one side of the road. So parking is really important in reality, and it is often controlled. And this is a way in the game to do that. So very, very great mod. Next up is a twofer, Node Controller Renewal and the Network Multitool. They're both found in the Unified UI if you have that installed, and they're both incredibly valuable and powerful, especially when you use them together, which is why we're going to take a look at both. Let's start out with the Network Multitool. First of all, you have a number of options in here. The first one is to add a node. So if you have a road segment that you want to add a node to, you just come through, you get this little marker and you can click and you add a node. You might wonder why this is important. Let's say, for instance, you have a path. So we'll add a path right here at that node that we just created. If you have node controller, you can come through, Control N, click this, and actually create a crossing right at that node. So that is there because we added that node, and you can do a lot with that. You can go through in your traffic routes, add a signal there, and now it is a pedestrian crossing. So that is absolutely awesome. If you don't want that there, come through here, click on Remove Node, gone. Now the node's gone. And this can be really helpful if you have extra nodes in places that are inconvenient. If you need to add a node so that you can make a junction somewhere exactly where you want it, these two are absolutely outstanding. Now there are some other options. So I'm going to create a couple of roads here because we're going to look at union and split. Okay, so first of all, we have this little weird segment here. Let's say we want to union some nodes. So we click on a node here, we find another node, and now those are connected. So this could be really helpful if you want to remove nodes. You can do the exact same thing. Let's add another one through here. And let's say you don't want this road to connect up right here. You click on this segment, click on the node, and then you click on where you actually want it to go. So I'm going to overshoot it. And now instead of meeting up here, it's meeting up over here. Now you might wonder, why would you ever want to do that? Well, because you can go into here, into your segments mode, click on this segment and this one, and now I've added a junction there. So what that does, this is the intersecting segments mode, and you can create those new segments. If you have, right here I have Anarchy on, it can be very valuable because you can just go through, overshoot, make the exact roadway network you want, and then go through here and create the junctions very quickly. This is very valuable if you are using Image Overlay 2, for instance, and you're tracing a map. You can go through and create the exact roadway network you want and add those junctions fairly rapidly and quickly. Now, do know if you have a node inside of the intersection, you're going to need to move that. Having move it will help. So will removing nodes through here. Like there's an extra node here. Get rid of that. You can do the exact same thing. And if you're going to do this, you're going to want to go through afterwards and make sure you don't have a bunch of nodes you don't need. It's going to help you not reach your node limit. So very, very helpful. Next, we have this invert segments mode. So if you have, like, you'll look at the center lines here, they're not quite right. You can go through and click on that and invert where it's not quite right. It can be helpful. The other thing it's doing is if you look at all of the different, like we have a fire hydrant and a manhole cover, you click on this and it moves those. So it can be helpful if you want to invert that and switch the side of the road that the lines are on, or switch the decorations that you have. That can be helpful there. Next is one of my favorite parts of this tool, and that is the set slope. This is probably what I use the tool for the most. So let's say you have this slope is terrible and you want to fix it. You click on the first height that you want and the second one, and then you hit enter, and it fixes the slope for you there. And that can just help you get really nice slopes through here. Obviously this isn't going to be high enough, so you might want to use move it and do some more work around here. But now that you have the ability to set slopes, you can fix all of these slopes as well. And now very quickly, I made very nice slopes on here, made this look a lot better. Next, we have this Arrange at Line tool. So let's say you have roads and you just kind of come through and you want to make this a straight line. You come through here, you select your Arrange at Line, and what you can do is actually start to create a nicer slope or a straight line if you select too many. So you can see that I was able to make a nice curve there, or change this and make another curve. But it's a really powerful tool that can allow you to do quite a bit of stuff to improve your networks, or break them like I am right here. But you can see that I was able to make a nice slope through here, or not a slope, but a nice curve through here. So lots of interesting things that you can do with that tool. Next one is Arrange at Circle. So let's say you have a square and you want to turn it into a roundabout. Come through here, Arrange at Circle, select your nodes, or select a node, and it'll automatically detect that, hit enter, and now it's a circle. So it can be very, very helpful. If you want to make a real quick roundabout or turn a bunch of squares into a circle. There you go. And now obviously you're going to break some things here and there. You might need to clean it up, but it can certainly help you if you're creating a brand new roadway network. Next is a fun one. So the looping mode. So let's go through it. We'll delete this. And let's say we have 2 roadway segments, one at the ground, and let's set one, we'll go up 12. And we want to be able to connect these very nicely. So we can come through here, select this segment and this one. And that's not the way that I want to connect it. You come to the edge that you want to connect at, and you'll see that it makes this nice slope for you. So you can change this. You can go through, add plus or minus. Obviously with this one, because of how close and tight they are, that's not going to work well. So let's back that out a bit. Select this one and this one. We'll select the edge that we want it to connect with, and plus or minus will change the angle. If you hold Control, Alt, or Shift, you can have much more fine grain or less fine. So Shift is a bigger jump, Control is a finer jump, and Alt is even a finer jump than that. We're going 1/10 of a meter versus 1 meter versus 10 meters. I believe it might even be higher than that. It might be 100. Let's take a look. Yes, that's times 10, so that's 100 meters. So definitely something that you want to play with. You can click on both ends and make some really complicated and complex junctions, and they're absolutely perfect. You can also hold the center of this little knob here and completely change it. So you can make really nice junctions, perfectly curved very quickly. And with that, you can do the same thing with this. So this is the S junction, and you can create similar junctions, but this has 2 curves in it. Allows you to really make some curves around complicated areas, which might be exactly what you're looking for. Same thing, plus and minus to change it. And this can be really helpful when you're making intersections, connecting up 2 highway segments, especially when you have Anarchy on. Same thing with the curve tool. Come through here with the curve. Let's say you have these 2 roads right here. We'll make them both at grade. And you want to connect them up with a curve. Click on one, click on the second one, click on the ends that you want to connect up. And now we have a nice, perfect junction right there. Do the same thing on this side if we wanted. And obviously we don't want to do that, but we click on the other end. And now we have that perfect curve through there. Hit enter and it creates it. Just as simple as that. We also have this parallel mode tool, which can be very, very helpful for a number of particular instances. So let's say we have a train track and we want a perfect parallel track with that. So we have our track selected, we go into the tool, we click parallel, we click the nodes that we want the parallel track to be located on. You can see it's shadowing it in. We hit plus if we want to increase that distance, minus if we want to decrease it, and enter when we want to place it. And there we go, perfectly straight. This can be incredibly powerful along a road like this. Let's say we want the railroad to actually mirror the road. Click on the junctions, hit tab to switch sides. We have a particular side we want it on. Plus and minus to switch. We can use our shift if we want to increase our distance by 10. Control if we want to go by 1 meter. Alt if we want an even finer grain of granularity there. And then enter, and we create that, and it completely and perfectly mirrors that. That can be done with any number of things. You can use it with key walls too. So let's say you wanted to have a key wall, and let's look right here. Let's say we want a key wall that mirrors this. Come into here, into our parallel tool, and we can increase the space, enter, and look at that key wall. You might end up with some weird stuff here. I'm wondering if the invert can fix this. It can. So I'm inverting this with the invert tool, and it's facing the key wall in the right direction then, so it perfectly lines up. And just like that, I quickly created a parallel key wall, maybe even where the game wouldn't allow me to do this normally, and it perfectly aligns with this road. If we take a look, now we can even zone along there. So it can be a very, very powerful way to create parallel networks. And then finally, we have this unlock segment mode. So let's say we are over here, and normally you cannot add a road into this harbor directly. So if I wanted to come through, it's going to direct me to either side. If I come in here, I can unlock this segment, and now I can do whatever I want. Right there, right in the center. So incredibly powerful. Now I want to switch over to node controller because that's where you can really get some power here. So let's come right to this road, and you'll see that I don't have a connection here. I come into the network multi-tool, add a node right here at this crossing. And like I mentioned with node controller, Control N, click on this, and I can add a crossing. So that can be very powerful there. The other place where where node controller can be powerful, right here. Let's say I want to make this look a little bit more realistic. I click on this particular node, and now I can pull this back, which can increase the angle through here, make it a more sweeping angle so vehicles can maintain their speeds. I can look at this, the colors here. So this is red, blue, green. They correspond to these up here, and I can do a number of things. I can shift these over. So I'm shifting the red one over. I can shift them all. I could rotate. So that's if I want to change the angle. I can offset these, which increases that distance. And I can really do that with a fine grain of granularity. I can remove markings. So let's say I want to get rid of this crossing at the blue. Come here, click on that, no longer have a crosswalk. And my favorite thing to do is actually make things straight. So let's say right here, these angles are weird. You come up here, you click on make the angles straight. So make end straight, and now look at that, so much nicer. You can even pull this back, and now they can get out of here a lot faster. Looks a lot better. One of the places where I like to do this is, let's say you want to have a merge lane. I can come through here now, go into my node controller, make end straight, and now if I hold down shift and I click on an end, so you click the one you want to start with and where you want to align it, click here, align it with this. I've shifted that over, and now you can see that this really lines up nicely. We've got an acceleration lane. We can change that over here as well. Line this up with this, and now that merges in very, very nicely. So lots of great things that you can do with this tool. Really, your imagination is the limit with the two of these tools. You can do a lot to make your cities look and function a lot better. And it's just as quick as coming through, selecting nodes, cleaning things up. And just by doing that, I've made this look so much better. I can make it function better. And you can even remove this node if you wanted things to have a sharper angle. Come through here, network multi-tool, remove that node. And this is where having move it with this can be really helpful as well. Now I can change those angles. When you have Anarchy, come through here. So we want to make this a bridge. We have a lot of power now. We have a lot of power. And you can even add that through here if you wanted to change it up. Do a whole bunch. So very, very, very powerful tool. You can do a lot of things to improve and break your networks like I just did. So go wild with this one. Your imagination is the limit of the power that this one has. Next up is one of my personal favorites, Bob, or Beautify Our Builds. So you can do a lot with this one. So click or hold Alt and B, and you'll notice that what you get is this Bob showing up on your pointer. Select a building, for instance, that you want to change. So right here, I'm already selected on the trees mode. I can click on the green tree. I can change the probability that trees show up. So I can set it to nothing. Trees are gone. Move it all the way up to maximum, and you can see that they're there. And now I can change the trees that show up here. So this can be really fun, especially if you want to change trees to something tropical, or you want to use some of the new trees. Those are MP9 for whatever reason. That's what they're called in here. So you can swap these out with some other trees and really change the way the assets look and customize these. You can select and save those changes. And look at that, you can move this over, and now we have these beautiful palm trees popping up out of here. We can have cottonwoods, whatever you want to do, and then you can save it and apply this to all of the different buildings like this. You can also revert it back to the original trees that were there. You can move things around. You can just have so much power with what you can do to your particular builds. Now, where this can be really impactful is, let's say you are looking at the vanilla trees that are in here and you're no longer satisfied with the way that these look in light of some of the new assets that came out, come through here, select this palm, and let's say we want to change this with one of the new palms. Come through, select it here, click on the action, and now every single palm tree that is randomly placed throughout here has been replaced. We can do the same thing with this. Let's say we want to, we'll type in MP9. We can replace this standard beech. Let's replace it with a horse chestnut. Now those are all changed. Same with the bushes. We replace those with, right here, these wild hedges. We can even take these rocks and say now the rocks are tall grass. Oh, nope, it will not do that. So you cannot do that, but you can do other things. So very powerful tool here. You can basically do this with any building. You can even go into here on the train tracks. Let's say you are not satisfied with all of, you can come through and you can click on it and it'll show you the different things that you can replace. Let's say you don't want the power lines. Come through here, change the probability to nothing. Now they're gone. Or you can increase the spacing, whatever you'd like to do. Lots of great things that you can do here. And you can do this to specific buildings as well. Let's find a building that has an obnoxious billboard. Right here. This one's pretty obnoxious. So we'll click on this building. We can say we do not want that top billboard. And you can see it highlights it. This is on all of these different buildings. Take the probability down. We have this soda. Oh, I didn't save it. You can do the exact same thing here. And now those are all gone, and it can really clean up the way that these buildings look. You can also replace it if that's something you want to do. There's a ton of things you can do. Remove parking spaces if you don't want to see the parking at these buildings. So let's say you have this one, and you want to get rid of the parking. You might have to click through a little bit, because you can remove a ton of things in here. But there's the parking spaces. I can remove those parking spaces. So now that you don't have the lines there, there are also the invisible parking spaces. I'll have to get rid of those as well. And now parking should be gone here eventually. And you see that that has eventually disappeared. So lots of interesting things. If you don't like what you did, go back and revert it, and you're good to go. You can also go through and apply this to all props of this types of building, or just this building, or these buildings, or just this individual building. So lots of interesting things that you can do here. You can look at both trees and props. You can change the height, just lots of great things that you can do, and it can completely change the way that your build looks. You can see that just by going through and replacing some of these trees, this looks like a lush forest through here, which was not the aesthetic that we had before. So I'm very pleased with how that's turned out. It looks like I have a couple of settings on through here. There we go. And, you know, we can go through and continue to customize these if we want to. So really interesting stuff. You can also hide the vanilla assets if you have a bunch of assets from the workshop, and you can quickly change the way your build looks. So definitely check out Bob and beautify your city. Next up is Zoning Adjuster, and I absolutely love this mod. So one of the things that you can do is disable zoning on roads, and you can also prioritize the zoning. So, you know, I don't like zoning along collectors, so we can click disable zoning, have the collector selected, and go to upgrade, and not allow zoning along here. We can also force the zoning, so we can bring it right back, or even put zoning on roads where it is not normally allowed, like right here, coming along and adding it to the highway. I can also disable this. And I can prioritize zoning. So let's say I go through, I'll get rid of my setting there to disable zoning, and let's add a road into this collector. We'll do it at an angle so we can really show what we're doing. If we want to prioritize the older roads, right now we have this mismatch, and you know, part of the zoning is going to the local road, part's going to the collector. I click on prioritize older road, and now you can see that it's allowing more zoning to occur along the collector. You can do the same thing with the newer road. And now it's breaking up the zoning along the collector and prioritizing this street right here. So you can also go back to no priority and get that default kind of mix. Really your call, but this is a very powerful tool, and it's one of my absolute favorites. Next up is an older mod, but still one that's great, Prop and Tree Anarchy. And you might be wondering, why am I not just recommending the brand new Tree Anarchy? It does a better job. The main reason is because it has a learning curve. And I've run into issues bringing it into builds. So you can end up with all of your trees popping through your roads. You can end up with your loads not working correctly. And I just don't have those problems with prop and tree anarchy. So if you look down here, you can see prop and tree anarchy off. And if you hold Shift P, it says that it's on now. And what this allows me to do is go through and add trees in places where I might not otherwise be able to do so. Now, you used to be able to do it on the roads, but now that you have the upgrade option, it's a little different. So what I could do is come through and add these anywhere within this property now, right in the center. That's where I want it to be. I can do that. The roads, you used to be able to place it there, but now that you can upgrade the roads with any tree, that's no longer necessary. So you can't do that, but you can do it within the buildings. You can add it to parks and switch it off, Shift P again, and now I can add it. So very powerful tool for decorating. You can do the same thing with props. So if you had a park prop, let's say you have a bench and you want to be able to add this here, Shift P, I can zoom right in and add a bench here. I can add a fountain here. I can do whatever I want because I have prop and tree anarchy on. So absolutely wonderful tool. Next up is another one of my favorites, the Roundabout Builder. So let's say I want a roundabout right here. I can either go into the unified UI and click on the Roundabout Builder or Control O. It'll bring up this Roundabout Builder menu, and this does a couple of things for you. First of all, you have this drop down so you can select the exact kind of road you want to use. So let's say you want to use, highway ramps for whatever reason. You could do that. I'm going to go with the default, the 2-lane road, and ultimately you can upgrade it anyway. And what it allows you to do is come and find a node or a junction, and you can create a roundabout. By hitting minus, it shrinks the size of the roundabout, plus increases the size of the roundabout, and just as simple as clicking it, you get your roundabout. Now I have keep open selected so I could show this to you. One of the things that I don't have selected right now is level terrain. I would generally recommend you keep that on so that the roundabout is occurring on level terrain. Otherwise, you can end up in situations like this. We'll go into free cursor mode so we can put a roundabout wherever and we won't level terrain. And you can see that happens. If we level terrain, it's a perfectly flat roundabout, which is how a roundabout should be. You shouldn't have any strange elevations through there. So very powerful tool. You can also set the radius very specifically by selecting a number here rather than using plus or minus. And you can have that set up TMPE, TMPE settings automatically, which I generally leave on as well. That's totally up to you, but it just saves another step. So excellent tool, can really help with your traffic flow. You can add these throughout your city very quickly then, and I use it all the time. Next up is a great mod for all you detailers. If you see right here, we've got a beautiful intersection right here. Not really intersection, but line work on our highway, and that's because of the intersection marking tool. So to activate this mod, Control L or click on this icon right here. And I've already completed this. Let's redo this on this side. So we'll click on this, and by default, if you click on two lines and line them up, what you'll get is a dashed line. If you hold Shift after you click on your first node, you will get a solid line. Now you'll notice that this is not lining up correctly. If you hold Control and click on a node, you can slide it over. Line that up perfectly. Let's say the color wasn't quite right. You could come through here, change the color. You could change the width. So let's say the line's just a little bit too wide, just take it down a little bit. And if you have a dashed line like this one, so I'll come over here, you can see that this is the dashed line because of the little icon right here. Click on this, I can increase the dash length. So now you see that those dashes are getting longer, and I can increase the spacing between the dashes. And I can try to mirror this. You could also save this as a preset so that you could apply this in the future. So I could just say dashes. And then in the future, if I create one of these, I can just go through, select apply template, highway dashes, and it fixes it for me. Now, let's say I want a filler. I click on this and I need to create the area that the filler will go in. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this as a temporary line. This is a temporary line. And what I've done here is actually created a small triangle right here. Now, if I hold Alt, you'll see that these all turn red. And now I can click where I want my filler to be. And it will create this default filler where it has these stripe lines. I can go in here and change this. grid, chevrons, solid, grass, gravel, whatever I want it to be. So I like to use solid often. And now you see I've got all these extra lines. I come back into here and I'm going to change the default start points. So first of all, I'm going to set this to solid, and that's so that it looks nice along my solid fill area. And I'll set my start point and then go my 2, the end point. And now you see that it moved, and I can use control again to shift this to get it to line up perfectly. And then I can do the exact same thing over here with my other points. So come through, start, end, set it to solid, and now it's nice and clean. There we go. But there's more that you can do with this, and we're going to mix it up with a couple of different tools. So let's go into Node Controller, Control N. Let's get rid of all of our markings along all of the crosswalks along here. So I got rid of all of those, and now I can go back in, Control L, into Intersection Marking Tool, come into here, go to Crosswalks, hold Shift, and I can make my own crosswalk. So by default, we just have this zebra crosswalk. I can increase the width to whatever I want it to be, and then select from any one of these different options. Parallel lines is this dashed line right here, a ladder, solid, whatever, checkerboard, whatever I want it to be. So it's really powerful and gives you a lot of customization. You can come through here and change the color. People have done some really interesting things with these. If you wanted to really have a lot of customization, you could make a really short one here, change the colors. Let's say I want it to be something totally unique, just by changing things up a bit. Another thing that you can do in here is you can add stop bars. So sometimes I like to do that. So I'll come back in, Control L, click on this, and just hold the Shift button, and I've created a stop bar. So just a real simple thing that you can do if you want to add a little bit of realism to your intersections. You just really have to pay attention to when you're holding your buttons, because if I hold Shift early, now I'm doing crosswalks. After I select a node, I hold Shift, I get a solid bar. So once you figure out the shortcuts, it's really easy, and you can do things like this very quickly and create some really custom and unique interchanges, or fix up some of the default vanilla stuff and make it look really nicer. So one of the things you'll notice is that if I zoom out from here, my decals will fade away, and that might not be far enough away for you. You might want to be able to see it here. If you pop into your options menu and find Intersection Marking Tool, you can increase your render distance and your load distance, which will allow you to see it when you're zoomed out further. So now I've increased that. I've added 2,000 feet to that, and what you can see is now I can see it a lot further away, and it begins to fade away when I'm too far away. Just know that if you do that, you're going to need a powerful machine, because the more of these that you add, the more it's going to tax your FPS. So just make sure that your computer can handle it, but it can really be nice, because now you can see, I can even see this one and this one. And if you put all that detail into making this, that effort into making this detail look as good as it is, you might want to increase that. So lots of great things that you can do in here. There are other things that you can do through here as well, shortcuts and the like. So be sure to check out all of the settings for this mod. Up next is another twofer. We're going to take a look at Ploppable Rico Revisited and Find It. Now these are two mods that are great by themselves, but even better together. So Ploppable Rico, you might think, well, you open it up and you have no assets and it's totally worthless. Well, it is certainly more valuable on its own if you have assets, because then you can modify the assets, change the values associated with those assets, but it's still a valuable mod without that. So what Ploppable Rico allows you to do is come into here and change the settings of any particular building. You could go through, let's say we have this allotment house, we could add a local version and then change the level of the building, the cost of the building, the number of people who can live at the building, and so it does a lot of interesting things there. But that's not what I'm most interested in. I'm most interested in what happens underneath the hood of this particular mod. So if we go into our options and we look at Rico Revisited, what it allows you to do is instantly plop growable buildings. It allows the growable buildings to survive outside of the correct zone, which means that you can plop them without fear of the building disappearing because it's in the wrong zone. It allows you to ensure that buildings that are growable can survive if you change a district specialization. So that can have a really mixed feel in some of those districts if you use this. So it has a lot of different options there. You can override costs of buildings. You can get rid of complaints. And when you use this in combination with Find It, which is this little magnifying glass right here, what it gives you the opportunity to do is plop down some of these buildings that you would otherwise be growable. So this could be really helpful if you want to customize the look and feel of an area. So let's say we want to get rid of these buildings, and we will take this one, we'll clone this with our eyedropper tool. We can place that right there. And now we can have a bunch of buildings that have a certain look or feel that we're going for. And if we're using Move It along with this, we could click on this, reset the object to change the color a couple times, and then slide it on over. And that's a vanilla building, but now it has that appearance of being one. And granted, I didn't line these up very well, so that's certainly something that we probably want to do. But just using vanilla buildings, you can create the appearance now of just one monolithic building, which can be really helpful if you want your city to feel unique. So using these two mods together is really awesome. It's also just, in my opinion, one of the best ways to find assets in here. I'll often go in here and look for, let's say I'm looking for a bench. I can search for bench, and every single bench available to me comes up, and I can place it and then search for my next thing. Look for a fountain, there you go. And I was able to do that very quickly because I was able to search for it, which is a feature that I think is sorely missing from the game. I often find myself looking through these menus forever trying to find things, and this is a way to avoid that. So being able to plop vanilla buildings, being able to search for different assets, incredibly helpful, incredibly valuable, and well worth your time. Even more value to this if you start bringing assets in, because you can modify the values. So lots to do here. Take a look. Up next is a mod that I quite bluntly need to get better about using. It is precision engineering. So the main benefit I see of precision engineering is that when you're coming through here, rather than needing to measure everything out in construction costs like I do in Verde Beach, I get that 13 units right there, and it's showing me the number of units it is going to take to build something. It's also showing me the angles, and it'll show me that in both directions, which can be really helpful. The other thing it can do is if you hold Alt, you can snap to your road guidelines, which can be really helpful. It'll tell you the number of units in between your road and the junction that you're looking to make. If you're coming in a midpoint and you hold Shift, it can give you a bunch of other really interesting information, such as the angle on both sides of the road, the elevation change, and allow you to snap to some of these different angles. So it's really a fantastic tool. There's a lot that you can do with it, and I would highly recommend you check it out. It's really one of those quality of life mods, but when you figure it out, it's absolutely awesome. The last feature you can do here is, let's say you want to snap to 5-degree angles, hold Control, and look at this, 80 degrees, 75, 70. Can be really helpful if you want to be really precise with what you're doing. So absolutely check this one out. This one's kind of an essential for me when I'm playing in a modded build, just because it's the sort of information that lets you make a really well-constructed roadway network with a lot of precision engineering. Next is one of my absolute favorite mods. It can really help you customize your city and get the look and feel that you want, and that is building themes. So I know that I don't have any custom assets in this build, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable. So to access this, you go into themes, and then I can enable theme management for this district. Now, understand that this is going to share your themes across not just your builds, but also if you have multiple Windows accounts like I do, it still has all of my themes. So some of these aren't going to work quite right, but some of them will. So let's go into the theme manager and we'll see what I can do. So first of all, I see that we have this University City pack. And what this allows you to do is if you have certain themes that you want to create, you can add buildings to it. Actually, let's make a new one. We're going to make an Art Deco theme. So we went to the bottom, created a new theme, and we're calling it Art Deco. Now we know that in this theme, we only want to have residential buildings. So we'll turn this off and then only have residential buildings. So we went to none and selected this. Now we can type in art and we can see that it's showing us the buildings that could fit in this theme. So a couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, I see 3 level 1 buildings and 1 level 4. So that's a problem. We need to have more than just that. Otherwise, you won't be able to have the full progression through. So all the buildings would end up being level 1 and nothing else. So I'm going to come through here. We have Art Deco apartments. So these are high density, level 1. That's all that we could have here. And as I turn that on, that seems to be about all that we have available in Art Deco is just those 3 buildings. So we could certainly go through here and kind of one by one pick out all the buildings that we want. The other thing that we could do, let's go back into this University City. And I want to just see what's in this pack. So I'll go to Display and I'll go to Included, which shows me just the buildings that are within this pack. And I see that there are 3 buildings. Because they're yellow, it means that not all the buildings are loaded. This is from Clearwater County, so that's not surprising. And I don't think I finished this one up. So I'm going to go to All, and I'm going to type in College. And I'm going to add a few buildings to this. And since Yumble District is next to a college, kind of makes sense. So this is really helpful with the University Cities Content Creator Pack, because that particular Content Creator Pack does not give you a theme. Same with the Art Deco buildings, which I find endlessly frustrating. Some of the Content Creator Packs do give you themes, such as European Suburbia. So with this, I can actually create this theme myself, and I could just go include all, but that, I want to be a little more precise than that. So now that I have this in here, I can go to none, and I just want to see what's included. And it looks like there's a whole bunch of just lower density residential, but they're of a variety of levels, so that we'll be able to make it through the progression. We have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. We don't have any higher density, and we have no commercial. So if there's any commercial zone through here or any high density, nothing will grow in those areas. Unless, of course, we check allow buildings which are not in any theme for this district. But I don't want to do that. I want to take a look and see if I can get some of the University City buildings in here. So I'm going to figure out exactly what these are called. So it's things like Fry Guys and Fry King and Hamburgers. So those are the sorts of things that you can find in the University City pack. So I'm just going to add a few of those in right now. Okay, so I've picked a few different things and now we have our pack put together. So a couple of things to think about with this. These right here on the right hand side, it's showing you the size of the building. So you could have a level 1 and a level 2, but if they're not the right size, it won't level up. Might not be a problem for you. Maybe you're okay having buildings not level up. But if you have a level 2 that, for instance, is a 1x1 and you don't have a level 1, that's 1x1, that could be a problem. You could test this by going into level and selecting the size. So we could go 1x1. We see that we have a level 1 that is 1x1, 4 of them. Level 2, nothing. So these 1x1 buildings will never level up. So that might be perfectly okay in your mind, just something you need to be aware of. Same thing with 2x1, 2x2. We can't level those up either. But the 2x3 buildings, those can level up, but not past level 2. So this is all based on the pack that I put together. So once you're satisfied, and I mixed in commercial and residential buildings into this, you can mix anything you want in. Then you come through here, and in your district policies under themes, you select your new policy, and it says not all buildings are loaded. That's because I had those 3 that came with Clearwater County that didn't load when I loaded the game. The assets were not actually included in this build. Now that that's in there, this will be the new district theme for anything that springs up after this. So I'm going to go through and clear some of this out and see what springs up. Okay, so I've cleared out all the buildings here, and it's a good time to mention why I had to clear everything out. Because I have Rico in here, I have a setting enabled that will allow those buildings to remain when the district theme changes. So that could have been something, if you want to kind of emulate that slow turnover or transition of a neighborhood, you could certainly create a district theme, put it on there, and then not get rid of the buildings. And then as buildings turn over or buildings burn down, the new buildings that spring up will look like the theme that you have in place. That said, I have my new University City theme, and what you'll see is that all of the buildings, the commercial buildings, are the buildings that I selected. So the bookstore, I could have only the bookstore and have just bookstores spring up if that were something I wanted to do. And now I have some of these college houses springing up here, and only those buildings are going to show up. So this is something that, is incredibly valuable if you want to create neighborhoods that have a certain feeling and ambiance to them. You could see that, these buildings right here, they just kind of fit the college look, a little dingier and dirtier, and they came with the University City Content Creator Pack. So it makes a ton of sense that we would create a theme for this and put it right next to Yumble U. So definitely check out building themes. It's valuable even if you don't have assets. You can play with just the vanilla stuff and have a great time. Next up is a new version of an old favorite, Upgrade Untouchable, Convert Stations. So this is a fun mod because it allows you to take a look at some of these things that are kind of irritating in the base game, such as the fact that I can't upgrade this road in front of this bus and ferry exchange stop, and it fixes it. So we click on this mod, and what it wants you to do is control click, and then it will allow you to make this change here. So I'm gonna go into classic mode, and you can see that it immediately lets me highlight this, control click, and I'll come over to what I want to upgrade this to now, and I can easily upgrade that. And now if I have move it, I think I can nope, I can't move it away, which is totally fine, but I was able to upgrade the roads. So that, in my opinion, is super valuable on its own. You don't even need to have any other reason to have this mod, but they've decided to go above and beyond. So let me show you this. So now you can upgrade stations and change the track type. So where this is super valuable, let's come over here. We're going to take a look at this elevated island platform metro station. So this is a really neat station. You can place it over the top of a road like this, and you have to have find it to make this work. So I've got this. You see that it has metro tracks here, and let's say I'd rather have this be a train station because I don't have elevated metro in my city. So I come over here and I search for station track. So it has to be a station track because a station track allows you to add a stop. So I can come over here, click on the type of track I want to use, and use the pick tool. So after I select this, I use pick, and then I come over here. This is going to be a force elevated, and then I click on this and it changes the track. Check that out. So now it's a train track. I could have selected some other ones. So select this track, switch this, and then upgrade, but that one didn't work. So I did a little bit of playing to see which one it was. It's a little bit finicky, but you gotta keep testing until you find the one that works for you. And some of them just won't. Network not supported. This one is ground level. So obviously that wouldn't make sense for that to work. So I'm gonna come back to this, select the picker, and there we go. So now let's go ahead and I'm gonna choose just a basic train track now. And let's make sure that this thing actually works. So that is brutally ugly, but it's gonna be fine. So this is how you can tell it's working. I can add a stop there, and this is a train stop at that metro station. And then I come through here, and I've got to find the right line, which is going to be this outside line. Add a stop, and then click here again, completed. Let's see if this thing actually works. We need some power here, and we need water. Oh, we already have it because it's underneath our roads, right where it belongs. And now we're just going to let this, oh, there it is. We've already got this, our train going into our metro station and picking up no passengers. But what a cool way to modify some of these assets and really bring some new life into them. The Content Creator Pack, train stations and metro stations work better than some of the defaults that come with the game, but the ability to do this is just really outstanding. And being able to take some of these really cool assets and use them and bend them to your will makes this mod worthwhile in my opinion. So definitely check this one out. So next up is one that I use all the time, even in my vanilla builds, and that is Ultimate Level of Detail. This is one that you access from inside of the options menu, and what it does is allow you to increase your tree load distances, your prop distances, decals, buildings, networks, everything. So this is really helpful because if you take a look, we'll take a look at the trees here. They're kind of ugly, and when we come across, you'll notice, look at that, right there as I move along, we have those props popping in, or actually those are trees, I believe. So we'll pull this to the side, and I want to see what I can do to make that continue to stick around. So trees, you can see it changed the load of the trees and it looks better there. By default, we get the lower quality load. So I can increase this and it'll improve the way it looks. I believe, let's see, is this prop? Yep, that's prop. So now my props are going out twice as far as they normally do. Decals, I can do the same thing. So I find that buildings, trees, and props are the most important things. Decals, there's a lot of them. It can really slow your game down, but it can really be helpful, particularly if you create like a custom plaza. So decals, if I were to go through and let's say I come into here and I place a bunch of these are decals. So right now, and this, it's a little difficult to see with this one when they go away, but I think it's right there. This is probably an easier one to see because it's red. So we'll place that, and then we come out and you see that it's gone. Right here, it's gone. So I can also go through and increase the decal distance, and now I can see it again. So you need to really be careful here because this will absolutely tank your frame rate. So if you're not careful, you can kind of feel a little bit of jittering. If I come through, and hopefully this doesn't mess up my OBS. We'll see. I could say good luck. We're going to see everything everywhere for trees, landscaping just as it's meant to be. And look at that. But that makes it excellent for screenshots if you're going to do any lower resolution sorts of slow motion recording. You can increase the way that it increase the quality, and if you're recording at a low speed, it can certainly, if you're making your own cinematics, it can really improve things. Also, if you have a small city, maybe if it's a small detailed city or you're making one of those dioramas, you want to increase the quality and your draw distance. So you can certainly decide to turn some of these up and turn some of them down. If you have an underpowered machine for the game and you're struggling to run it, you might actually want to go and say, you know what, I want to do lower quality loads for everything. And, you're not going to have the same level of quality. Like, obviously, this doesn't look as good. And as I come in, you can see the loads popping. But if you're struggling to run the game, I think that you need to do what you got to do. And this might be what you have to do. So this gives you much more control over the way your game looks. It certainly gives you the opportunity to either get more performance, or if you know that you already are going to have good performance, get a better visual for your game. And I highly recommend this one. Up next is Clippy's favorite, Undo It. Now this is Clippy's favorite because it helps you undo mistakes that you make, just like it's Microsoft Office. So let's say we come through here, we make this road, we absolutely cannot stand what we're doing. We just pop out of here, Control Z, 1, 2, 3, and it's just like Microsoft Word. This is so incredibly helpful. If there's any mod that you think, if you're a purist and you don't want mods, maybe consider this one. This one isn't infallible. It sometimes has errors. If you're in Move It, for instance, it's going to work half the time. Make sure you're all the way out before you start undoing it. But it's just an excellent mod, and I highly recommend you throw it in there. It's really a quality of life mod. And if you're getting into some of the other mods we mentioned today, this is absolutely a necessity, so you can go back, rewind the clock a little bit when you make some of the mistakes that you're bound to make in the beginning of using some of these mods. Up next is a simple mod that is absolutely one of my favorites, network skins. So if you want to customize your roadway network, this is the mod for you. So let's say I want to change everything about this particular avenue. We come into here and let's go to upgrade, and we have this little menu that comes up. So the first tab is going to allow you to change what is happening on the side of the road. So right now we have sidewalks. We could say, well, we actually want gravel. We want this to feel rural, or it could be even dirt. We just want it to be dirt. Whatever you're looking for. I'm gonna go gravel. And now let's say that we want it to feel really rural and we don't want lights here. We can certainly do that. We'll come over, we'll make it night. We'll go to our lights and we can come up here and say none. Now we can upgrade this, and look at this. We're upgrading it to have no lights, which is absolutely fantastic. So now if we come back to daytime, this feels very rural. But you can do more than that. So let's say you do want lights. You could say, I want this to feel like a very fancy road. So we're going to change the pavement. We will bring our sidewalks back. We are going to change the color of the roadway. And let's give it, I wonder how red would look. A little crazy. Let's say we actually want it to look like blacktop. So we'll change it to black. That's a little red still. There we go. So now it's black. So it looks like asphalt instead of concrete, and brand new asphalt to say the least. So now we could go through and remove road decorations if we want. So we could say we don't want any of the road decorations, like all of this craziness happening on the side. We just want it to be an empty road. We could get rid of traffic lights, crossings, whatever you want. And then we could change the lights. So we could say, I want this to feel special. So we are going to look at this and we'll do a university street light. Let's change it to night. And right now there's no lights. Now we have our university light. Let's say we want to increase this distance. And now you see that we have these every 13 meters, we have a light. And that can really change the atmosphere in an individual area. You could go through and make this, you could upgrade all of the roads to give it this feeling, or you could just leave it with just these ones. You could decide, I'm going to switch over, we're going to make a new road, and we're going to use this street lamp and pull this right off from here. And now this one has a different light. So this is the street lamp right here. We could change just this one. We'll say it's the new light highway. And upgrade just this. That looks pretty bad, but you could do it. We'll make it this one. And then from there, you could decide, you know what, I want to bring this all throughout my city, and I'm going to start copying a whole bunch of these. So you could just go through, use the pipette tool, select this style, and then bring it across and start to upgrade the rest of your roads. So very valuable. And I don't even know that this is actually costing us any money. Let's take a look. It is, let's pause it for a second. It is not costing us a dime. So we're just changing the appearance without any financial obligation. Now when we come through, you can see that we've got those fancy lights all up and down here, and it works like that for any of the roads. So incredibly valuable. The other thing that you could do with this is if you have a bridge. So let's say you want to change the pillars. So we have the default. Let's go with, we'll go in here and we'll say we want to use the pedestrian elevated pillar. It's probably a very inappropriate selection. Oh, how about we go with this? So we have this selection here. Must be the wrong one. There we go. So right here on elevated, because this isn't a bridge, we could go ahead and change it to whatever sorts of pillars that we wanted. Again, giving your city even more customization. I really like the way that these gravel bridge pillars look. These come on the, if you're using dirt roads, you'll get a wooden bridge with these sorts of pillars. Now I can include it with just any road network that I want. And when you're done, if you don't want to retain these changes, you can go ahead and reset all the selections for the road. And now when I come through, we got our old lights back, our old color, and our old pillars. Again, I could certainly go through, copy this, and apply this again if I want. Lots of flexibility in this mod, lots of fun. And our final mod is one that's going to help you in your modding journey. You're not going to stop here, I promise that. You are going to continue downloading mods and assets if you get into this habit. In fact, it's so addicting that I find myself needing to purge every now and then. So Compatibility Report is a mod that goes through all of the mods that you're subscribed to and tells you if they are compatible with one another. So if you are having a problem where your city is crashing, you can't load the game, you have visual issues, you go through Compatibility Report and it tells you what the problem is. So I have my entire screen pulled up because I want to point out where this is. First of all, it's under C, Program Files x86, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, Cities Skylines, City Data. And then it's a file called Compatibility Report. So that's right here, compatibility report.txt, and you can find information about all your mods right here. So if we take a look, it says mods that should be unsubscribed. I have 81 tiles disabled. No reason to have that in my mods list if I'm not going to use it. Same with adaptive prop visibility, Ploppable Rico, shadow distance fix. If I would have Ploppable Rico enabled, I actually subscribed to this one so that it would show a conflict. It says this mod is broken, unsubscribe. It is succeeded by a mod you already have, Ploppable Rico Revisited, which is something I knew, but I wanted to show you that this is a very, very well kept up-to-date mod. It is absolutely excellent. It tells you whether the mod will be updated or not. Future updates are unlikely. Granted, this is someone's best guess, but they've reviewed over 1,500 mods and given this amount of detail. So if you are going to go and get into modding, this is an absolute necessity. I can't mod without this because I am bad at troubleshooting, but this makes me good. So I highly recommend you check this one out. And with that, those are the top 15 mods for advanced players. I hope that you have enjoyed this. If you did, please hit the like button. If you are not subscribed, please consider doing so. And I cannot wait to see you in the next one where we go through my new DLC ratings and reviews. See you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.